welcome to a special story review of the Library Grindhouse. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Leah.
And so we'll be covering in this one a review of Stephen King's 1977 short story, originally published in Penthouse, or if you prefer a more legitimate publication, Night Shift collection, available on Overdrive. And so be sure to place your holds. And we'll be coming back to it, so also you might want to consider reading Lawnmower Man. That one's wild.
Yes.
But anyway. So Burt and Vicky are a couple on the edge, and they're traveling cross-country to see a family, but also ostensibly to save their marriage, which is crumbling to say the least. It doesn't seem like a great idea to put a powder keg in a metal box racing down the highway, but hey, you do you, guys. You do you. So not clear why Burt got off the turnpike, other than maybe boredom, ? Like, I guess in the movie they make a comment of like, we thought we'd see less corn by getting off the turnpike, and it turns out that we're just going to see even more corn.
I thought that he was doing that in order to take a more scenic route to save their marriage, to get them talking more. I thought he kind of made a nod towards that, and I could have been wrong yet again. I could have been extrapolating a little bit.
And so they're just constantly at each other's throats, and of course Burt has to basically be staring right at Vicky to make his point, and manage nailing a kid who is in the middle of the road for some reason. And they run him over with both front and rear tires, which is pretty gnarly. So then Vicky throws up and cries and yells at Burt. Well, he investigates the corn, finding signs of struggle and blood that weren't from his car. And then he slaps her, since he's hysterical, and this is the 70s, and that's how you do things, apparently. I'm like, I really feel bad for Stephen King's wife. Because I'm like, did he do this? Like, I'm just like, dude, like, come on. But then he also
trying to show that they're bad people. So maybe it's like they're bad people.
And at that point when she's crying hysterical, he realizes that he hated her. I don't just not like you. I don't just not want to be married to you. I hate you.
And that's when they're like, I don't even know why I married you to begin with.
Oh,
they cannot stand each other. They have just been forced together, or not forced together, but they have tried to stick it out for far too long. They can't stand each other. And now they're dealing with this. Now he's just hit a kid. He's got you know what I mean? It's just bah. And then the entire time he's thinking I'm gonna get manslaughter for this, or.
Well, Leah, I'm having so much fun spending time with and rooting for and caring about these point of view characters. I tell you, it is just such a treat. I tell you, I am just pulling for these crazy kids, and I can't see what adventures they get into.
Yes, exactly.
So Burt found a suitcase in the corn, and so they wrap up the kid, put him in the trunk for later, I guess, and seeing that his throat's been cut, and apparently is rather inefficiently, according to Burt, it was ragged, it was sawed, it was
somebody didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, and so they get driving, and Burt finds a preacher on the radio.
And I will say, I thought they did a good job at that in the short story too, where they're like, that preacher sounded really young. They don't make note of that in the movie. It sounds like an older preacher, it was just a random radio show that they came across because they're in the Bible Belt. This one is literally all geared toward them going to Gatlin. And they never not go to Gatlin. They're on their way to Gatlin because they hit a kid and they're trying to go to a police station. So they go to the closest town, which is Gatlin.
And I do like that the radio guy makes a mention of defiler of the corn.
Yeah,
and I'm like, ooh, that's creepy.
Well, they keep on seeing signs about the corn, and it is already in Burt's head. Did you see that? There's something about the corn. Did you see something about the corn? He's asking Vicky, and Vicky's just like, oh my gosh, turn this down. I don't want to go there. Let's go somewhere else. I'm getting a bad vibe. Let's go somewhere else. And he's like, no, but it's almost like he's got curiosity. Curiosity has piqued his mind. He doesn't care about what she says, to the point of he's like, no, I'm actually going to go exactly against what she says because I can't stand her.
I guess, but then are the kids broadcasting? The kids have a studio. The kids are maintaining a studio. The kids have a broadcast license. The kids have electricity going to this place.
Yeah.
The kids have all this wired and everything and maintained, and
which they do kind of mention that in the short story a little bit, how is this town still functioning?
Because,
and I feel like they tried to make note of that in the movie by talking about them producing their own gasoline with the corn.
Yeah, and I get the idea that maybe the kids are playing this station just to keep up appearances again, because they mentioned that there's a radio antenna, and so maybe they have a recording, a tape going of like former minister.
Yeah.
Because it was coming in loud and strong. And it was pretty close to Gallon. But then again, it's flat country. I guess radio is able to travel further because there's not a lot to block them.
That's true.
So anyway, they find a corn crucifix in the suitcase, like in the movie, and they get to town. And it's empty, even though the population said over 5,000 people.
I do have a question though about that. I don't remember what exactly the initials were, but didn't they say there were initials carved in the corn?
Yes, it's the initials I think that were carved above Jesus.
Okay.
Like the whatever those letters were, it was like whatever stood
It's
for.
like it was something.
Yes,
yeah.
it was like for the Latin of what they. Okay. I forget the exact terminology. I don't have that memorized.
Because I was trying to like think. I was like, whose initials are those? It's not he who walks behind. Like I was trying to be like, what?
It was not. No, it was.
Gotcha.
It was for some reason. Yeah, that basically. I guess I get the idea that they have basically think that he who walks behind the rose has revealed himself as like the next coming of Christ or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so Christ is now this corn deity that this is like we've had to do revelation is how they're taking it.
Okay.
And that's why they've. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
The Bible being altered, but anyway. So a lot of people have been slaughtered. If we look at this 5,000 population,
Oh,
a whole lot of that wasn't children. Now they hear the laughter of children as they check out the diner. After Vicky pointed out the gas prices were at least 4 years out of date, and then Burt freaked out on her. Despite the diner being all wrong, Burt still insists that he's going to go into the municipal building because
Which is true.
he's a man.
That's when they find the calendar and they realize 12 years has passed.
Yeah, which is just wild.
Which is a long
And
time.
the tension's good. But these characters just aren't well drawn for me. They're really strident and just so hateful. And I get that, you're just like, just get them dead already. Like, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'm not pulling for these people.
I was pulling for them to like have just some sort of redeeming, like,
You want them to get a good scare and then go on their way.
Yes, I will
guess.
scoot over on my floating driftboard for you. Like one of those things from Titanic, like trying to star-crossed lovers. Something. I don't know.
Star-crossed, they crossed their own stars.
They
this
did,
is their own,
but I wanted there to be some sort of like ending for that.
I guess but you wanted the twister of like, again, they hate each other, but the tornado's going to bring them together.
No, I didn't want them to survive. Don't get me wrong. I know that sounds really bad. Like I wanted something bad to happen to them, but I wanted to be like right before they crossed over for them to be like, oh, if I only would have listened to you, or like, oh, if only we would have loved each other more, this would have never happened. So it's sort of like, well, you learned your lesson now. Goodbye.
I just didn't get any sense of regret. But anyway, so the thing I liked about this though, since it's been like 10 years, like there's so much, the ground is so decrepit. Yeah. It's very obvious the only building in town that doesn't look terrible is the church. And it has a sermon board updated from the previous Sunday. The power and the grace of he who walks behind the rose. I'm just like, oh, that's so crazy and evocative. That would have been so cool in the movie. But Burt takes Vicky's keys because he's a complete jerk. And
she says that she's going to drive away. She says that she's going to
drive
away.
She gave him 5 minutes, and he's like, no, you're going to give me 30 seconds and then leave. And he's probably right, and I'm wrong, and they should have given her the chance to go away. And that's when I'm like, I can't stand this crap because he didn't even give her the chance to live. Like,
it is true.
And it's like, see, that's what it'd been like if he was like, if only I had left her the keys, if only anything. Like, he doesn't even have that thought. But anyway, we'll get there.
But she should never have mentioned. She mentioned to him that she was like, well, if you go in there, I'm driving away. I'm going to get the keys in the ignition. I'm going to drive away. If she just would have, she wouldn't have said it and toyed with him.
Way to blame the victim.
No, I'm not blaming the victim.
The person who's been slapped around by their husband.
It takes two to tango, and she eggs him on also.
I know, like when they hit the kid, she's like, oh, good job, Burt.
Yeah,
way to go, Burt.
She's not a good person either.
I got it. So she deserves it. I get it. Okay. So in the church, it features an awful image of what I presume is he who walks behind the rose and an organ stuffed with corn because music instruments are not allowed here.
Yes.
And then Burt finds a book with lists of names that tell the story of what happened. So basically he guesses that kids killed their parents.
That's the one part of the short story where I was like, oh, it's a shortcoming of the short story. But I guess he had to cut out some parts to make it short. Because it just seemed like Burt all of a sudden just had this epiphany of everything that was happening.
Yeah, he sees it all because then the kids themselves are allowed to live to the age of 19. Again, that number 19, which is basically a bad number in Stephen King literature. So basically, I even noticed like chapter 19s of his books, they seem to have something bad happen. Which maybe I'm reading into that because I know 19 is kind of like the 13 of the King universe. But anyway, so he guesses they're all sacrificing the corn to appease he who must walk behind the rose. Maybe the corn crop was failing. He's really doing the story a lot of help here.
Yeah.
Then the car horn blares. Burt runs out to see children everywhere, vanishing instruments, shells various implements of destruction.
Breaking into the car.
Yeah, the kids take Vicky. So Burt sustains a knife wound. But he's able to kill the red-haired kid who stabbed him and runs away. So he kills Malachi essentially, which I'm just like, whoa, that escalated quickly. He escapes into the corn, and then there's a quote here I wrote down. He felt well exercised and suddenly grappling with a clear cut, no matter how insane, problem. After 2 years of trying to cope with the incubotic gremlins that were sucking his marriage dry. I'm like, wow. So he finally feels good that he has like this thing to work towards after just tilting at the windmills of his marriage for the last 2 years. I'm just like, whoa.
My thing is maybe either A, he was like finally feeling a sense of accomplishment, which maybe he just wasn't feeling that way.
Like purpose, this is what I have to do.
Marriage and his he had a sense of purpose. Or I thought maybe the corn really is doing something. I thought maybe the corn, because he was running through the rows of corn, is like empowering him in order to get him to go into the center of the clearing. Well, that's what I thought.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, not to spoil The Shining, but I kind of was trying to figure out: is this like a scenario where like he walks behind the rose has been influencing him, like for like through the corn pollen or something?
It could have. Well, the entire time.
You will go to the municipal building. You will take your wife's keys. You will. He
was kind of fixated on the corn almost immediately after hitting the kid.
Yeah, so Burt winds up being guided right to a clearing where sacrifices are carried out. Vicky's already dead. She's been crucified with her eyes torn out and filled with corn, as was her mouth, which is pretty gruesome. And then crucified with her were the old minister and the police chief. So the police chief was at least in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then he walks around the roses, dark and large, with eyes like footballs.
Yes.
And then he kills Burt himself. And that's it for Burt and Vicky on that front. But then we cut to Isaac, and apparently he walks behind the roses not happy with all this, as Isaac expounds to the children. And the age of favor has been lowered from 19 to 18. And I forgot, he doesn't kill Malachi, he stabs Malachi because Malachi and about 20 other kids are going to have to sacrifice themselves. And Malachi walks into the corn as the pregnant mother of his child looks on, and she secretly hates the corn and wants to burn it, but she dares not.
But she doesn't think about it. She's scared the corn will actually know her thoughts.
And the corn seems content.
Yeah.
Corn seems chill.
Corn's good. Corn's okay with it.
Corn's all right. Yeah, so aside from some evocative imagery, it's a fine short story, nothing mind-blowing. I mean, it's pretty evocative with the kids. It's like Lord of the Flies stuff. Like, in 77, there wasn't a whole lot like this.
I just like the ending far better than the movie, because I feel like the movie, it's just like a happy-go-lucky sort of almost comedical, but that's not the right word.
It ends almost on a saccharine, a sitcom note of just like, well, you kids lost your parents, but you know what? Maybe we'll look after you. Basically implying that they might try to adopt them, which I'm just like, is that gonna work? Is that how it works? Like, are they gonna let that happen? Like it
just seemed happy-go-lucky, like a weird ending for a scary story. Where I feel like this ending, it literally was just like that town is still out there, like the corn deity, the everything. He who walks behind the rose, it's still out there.
Well, I mean, ironically, King was, I think, contracted to write the first screenplay for this movie, this story, and he had them arguing for like 45 minutes, which I'm sure you would have liked better, of course, because you hate good things.
I do.
Anyway, but yeah, so there's that. I'm sure it probably would have had a more nihilistic ending. It's just one of those things where I want some relief. And I will say, I'll give that to 70s Stephen King. He would not give you relief. Like, he was like, especially his Bachman stuff in the 70s, just like, dang, dude, like, dark, man.
Yes.
Like, are you okay? Like, I would have had some serious questions about his mental health, especially with the 70s stuff. But anyway, it was just really dark and unrelenting. And he's really softened as he's gotten older. And I think that's, ironically, that the Stephen King movie, or the book movie of the story is more like the Stephen King now than the Stephen King of the 70s, which maybe there's a missed opportunity there to have a Children of the Corn movie that ends on a nihilistic Cormac McCarthy note. But, I wasn't really mad about it. It was really abrupt. But it's one of those things where I like the short story. I like that you have that. It's a good ending for the short story. Let's put it that way.
I just wish that the ending for the short story would have happened in the movie. I do. I wish that there wasn't a happy ending. I feel like it belittles the short story. It belittles the story in general.
And that's fair. I think, but the one thing, I wonder if any of the remakes, I haven't watched them because I don't want to waste my life, but to see if they have a more nihilistic ending to any of those movies that have remade basically a story adapting or a movie adapting the short story directly. I was rooting for it if they haven't done it yet.
Definitely.
But it's one of those things where I just don't know. I don't know if I'd want to. I guess I'd want to have like the 84 movie with characters I actually want to spend an hour and a half with, that then have a really terrible ending happen to them and the credits roll, and the bad guys win essentially. I'm fine with that versus like, again, just awful people meet an awful end, and that's 90 minutes of my life gone. And
But did you learn your lesson? To just be nice to people? Lesson learned.
but that's not how that works.
Through Burt and Vicky.
That's not how that works though. Like they would being nice would not have helped them. Like
No, but if they would have listened to each other,
but then you have a story where it's like awful people meet adversity, overcome it together, and come out better for it in the end, either together or they decide they're going to get a divorce or whatever.
But if they would have done that in this movie, I would have been fine with that too. Instead of happy people meet adversity, become happy people.
That's fair. I guess that is very interesting, but I don't know. There's still
I feel like Burt and Vicky didn't grow at all in the movie. They just sort of like
they didn't have a
had
chance to grow in the story,
to do
so
whatever.
I don't know.
But they did kind of grow. They met their fatal ending from being awful people.
Fair enough. Those are our thoughts on the short story, but let us know what you thought of the short story in the comments if you want. And
It's a really quick read. I mean,
yeah,
really quick read, and it's good. So yeah.
it's solid. It at least passes the time very quickly. But anyway, for Library Grindhouse, I'm Jesse,
And I'm Leah.
and we'll see you Friday for the reveal episode.
Bye.